7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good morning and welcome to PROSTEP Tech Day, the meeting of the PROSTEP community. I'm so pleased that you are here and that so many of you are watching. We are holding this online for the first time, so thank you for giving this format a chance, for making the most of this opportunity. Thank you. We've prepared a great deal for you. You'll be receiving lots of information, watching lots of presentations. They might be entertaining or even interactive. I'll get onto that later. But let me start by introducing myself. My name is Julia Bauer. I am a TV and event host. It is my great pleasure to be able to guide you through 3 sessions today. This is the first session, which will continue until 10:30 and deal with the data exchange platform OpenDXM GlobalX. We will then have a break. Then we will continue from 11 till 12:30, looking at the topic of PDF Generator 3D. The last session is from 2 p.m. to 3:30. There you can learn all there is to know about Product Suite OpenPDM. But that's not all. We have 3 exciting presentations held by clients, and we also have an exclusive for you introducing the new traceability solution OpenCLM. Beyond that, it will be a little bit interactive today, so do get involved. I look forward to receiving your questions. The idea is that this is an exchange. You can ask questions using your screen. I will read these questions off the iPad and pass them on to our speakers during the Q&A at the end of the session, but also after every client presentation. But you might want a more in-depth exchange. This is possible as well. You will see a link on your screen at the end of every session. Click on this to enter another meeting where you can speak to a product manager. So this event is about providing information, but it's also about networking. You might also like to share this event with your customers and colleagues in German or English. This is possible. We are recording the event. There will then be English subtitles, and this will be made available to you online. You can then share it and enjoy the event once again. So that's all from me for now. I've said quite a bit, so I think it's time to take a look at the agenda and to hear what's new at PROSTEP. I'd like to hand the floor to a man who has been involved in all this for 23 years and has headed the business unit products since 2012. Welcome, Peter Pfalzgraf.
Hello, good morning, and welcome again once from my side. PROSTEP Tech Day is the event at which we would like to inform you in detail about our product solutions. Here, the agenda, the first session, the first 90 minutes, is about OpenDXM GlobalX. Let's have a look at it in more detail. We have various points on the program. At the beginning, it will be about presenting news of PROSTEP, but also about the products. What's important, and you know this already if you've taken part in a Tech Day before, we like to review what has happened since the last Tech Day. Where are we, and what about product development? That will be about the first 25 minutes. Then about 9:25, there should be a customer's presentation. We're very happy that Alexander Meyer from HBPO will be with us. He will be reporting about the use of OpenDXM GlobalX with our new SAP ECTR integration. That has been previously recorded, but then afterwards you will have the opportunity to ask questions personally. Then a very important point is highlights from the PROSTEP lab. We would really like to show you what is happening at the moment in our product development, what topics we're working on. Our product manager, Daniel Wiegand, will have demos and live presentations. And That goes very well with this. It's already been mentioned, our new product OpenCLM. We would like to give you a first preview. That's going to be a topic for next year, but today, for the first time, you will see what it actually is. What this product contains is really totally new PROSTEP product. And what is not allowed to go missing, of course, is a roadmap, particularly what have we planned for next year, 2021. That will come afterwards, and here we have it as a separate Q&A session. We've already mentioned this, it will be done in several steps. There will be a brief Q&A session after each presentation, and then at the end of 90 minutes there will be a general Q&A session. And very important, you will have the possibility to join in a live chat with our product manager so that you can really ask your questions in detail after the event. That's what we have planned to do until about 10:30, following this live session. Now, a few general words about PROSTEP. I have two pictures down at the bottom right. You can see that was the last Tech Day. That was really close to our headquarters where we are today, Darmstadt Computer Center, DARTS. The header was security you can touch. It was a very nice event. A quarter year later, beginning of 2019, we had our 25th anniversary with 300 people in our head office in Darmstadt. That was really a very nice event, but unfortunately, such an event is not imaginable this year at all. We have about 280 people at PROSTEP now, and we have a portfolio that covers several subjects. I would like to show this to you once again, and also present a few highlights from the last 2 years. What's very important for us is also consulting, PLM management and process consulting. As you can see in the top here, then our PLM solution components units. It's about implementing our solutions, customized software development, but then also very much our own products, as you can see down at the bottom once again. That's the basis of the whole thing, really, our own PLM products. So what has happened? Just a few highlights here. In consulting, we acquired a majority stake of VHC, Midgards and his team of 35 people. It's PLM for BE, as they call it, so right at the interface between PLM and Application Lifecycle Management, ALM, and various topics that have to do with mechatronic products, software development, etc. And that way we were able to extend our expertise in consulting quite significantly. And generally, as we call it, we are now your partner for digital transformation. There are a whole lot of white papers, if I may point this out. Just have a look on our website, download them, about things like Industry 4.0 or digital twin. Another topic, also from last year, 2019, PROSTEP started a new software development center in Wrocław in Poland, under PROSTEP Poland. A very important extension for us to expand our know-how, our expertise in software development, and that way both our individual software development, supporting software in large customers, but also our own product development, and that takes us to the interface with our own products. We have significantly expanded our capacity, our options here. And that takes us to our products now. This is an overview. You know the three here on the left-hand side, our collaboration tool, OpenDXM, OpenPDM, and PDF Generator 3D, and as we said, a preview of OpenCLM. But today, right now, in the first session, it will be about OpenDXM GlobalX. And that's what I'd like to pass back to Julia Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Pfalzgraf. These developments are truly fascinating. I would like to introduce our next speaker, who I'm sure you all know well. He has been a member of the team since 1996, and he is in charge of product management. Who is it? Who else? Udo Herring.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bauer. In the next few minutes, I will have a great honor to tell you something about the trends to do with OpenDXM GlobalX.
We look forward to it. Could I maybe jump in with a question beforehand? I would be interested to know the market trends around OpenDXM GlobalX.
Yes, I would like to address that right away. I've prepared something for you. Now, if you look at this Gardner number, it says 75%. That means 75% of companies are already active with a cloud solution, or at least, as it says here, have a strategy, cloud first. That means over the next few years, they or you will become our customers and will have to deal with cloud quite intensively. And obviously, over the last 2 years, you already have done. OpenDXM GlobalX, as you all know, at least our old customers, should be very well prepared for an installation in a cloud environment. And some of our customers have already done this with the familiar suppliers, Amazon, maybe it's Google Cloud Platform, or Microsoft Azure. We, 3.5 years ago, decided to offer something of our own in cloud services, and we're doing that quite successfully. And I can please take us to the next slide. And we'll do that together with our service provider, the Darmstadt Computer Center, which is a data center certified according to the necessary standards, and also has suitability for critical infrastructure and fulfills all the requirements. That means the infrastructure is provided by DARTS, the data center, and we provide OpenDXM GlobalX as a cloud service, as a software as a service application. And there, as a matter of standard, the customer takes care of administration of the solution, but when necessary, then obviously we offer extended services as well. That means that we can take care of this work for the customer too, and the customer can then focus entirely on using the solution. In future, we plan to offer further services on this platform, like for instance our Open Desk Conversion service, which enables specific OEM environments to convert own customer data and then store them in conformity with OEM requirements. The solution can be provided in various different ways. We have various models, multi-tenant platforms, in which several customers, of course, segregated, can manage their data together with their partners, or as a private solution, or even as a hybrid solution. That means parts of the solution, or the servers, our data exchange platforms, would be in DARTS, for instance, and certain components could then also be in the own environment, or also in different cloud environments as presented before, maybe as Cloud, Google, or Microsoft, or also other cloud providers which you might already work with internally. That was an overview. So cloud is going to be something we're going to have to deal with in the future as well. And besides functional extensions, which we're going to hear about from our colleagues later on, we'll have to focus on this. Back to Frau Bauer.
Thank you. That sounds very interesting. Mr. Farsgraf, I'd like to stick with the issue of the cloud. Mr. Herring has told us that this will continue to be an issue. What is the current situation? Are there clients already working with it?
Yes, certainly, some are. Here on this slide, you can see a short excerpt of our list of customers on the left. These are precisely the customers that Mr. Hering was just describing in our DARTS Partner Center. These are customers, Osram, Continental, Valeo, Siemens, who said right from the beginning that they don't want to operate this as a solution of our own. We want to buy a service, and they did this right from the outset. The middle and right-hand columns, these are customers who said we still have our own installations of OpenDXM GlobalX, but here Valeo has an implementation for a very specific use case. It's about the exchange of very large video data on a global basis. They use Amazon AWS services, and there we have our OpenDXM GlobalX implemented. It's very similar with Ineos down at the bottom. They have a complete infrastructure based on Microsoft Azure. That's also a PLM system like Teamcenter, which we integrate with our OpenX and implement this tool. On the right-hand side, Google Cloud as the third large platform. Again, last year we had a very intensive collaboration with an international automotive manufacturer using this platform, and we have with our OpenDXM GlobalX, and the functionalities which we offer in this tool have been further optimized, and we still want to optimize them even further. And that way we can collaborate seamlessly with such cloud infrastructures. So you can see there are a whole lot of customers in this cloud sector. Of course, we also have customers on-premise, small examples, newer kind, for instance, in America here. Automotive supplier is a large customer of ours, but also a company like Sargomi here in Germany. Our implementation partner, Zenit, there it's very much about integration in the back-end system, which make it interesting for the customer to use on-premise solutions. But you can see you have the whole bandwidth here.
All very interesting. Mr. Herring, maybe we could go into more depth on the future. How will data exchange develop in the future?
Certainly we can talk about that. It's already been hinted at. There are marketable solutions, but there also are projects which are still in research and development, where we can generate new ideas. And we took part in the Sample project. Sample is a secure additive manufacturing platform. What it's about is that a manufacturer, for instance, needs spare parts, and a print service provider is told that he can print the parts. A license, or the number of licenses, how many parts he's allowed to print, is communicated, and then accordingly the data have to be transmitted securely. And precisely for that, OpenDXM GlobalX was used to assure secure data transmission, and beyond that we have what I call a so-called blockchain module, which is integrated or can be integrated in OpenDXM GlobalX, so that these transfer processes can be backed up based on blockchain technology. So if you need anything like that in your company, please approach us. We would be happy to consult you. We've prepared a few workshops so that the technology can be communicated. A second research project called DigiTrim. It's about existing factories to be scanned together with the machines in the factories, and these scans can then be used to digitalize them once again. That means the machine's positions within the hall can be recorded, and based on that then the data can be continued to be used in simulation, in manufacturing chains, etc. A very exciting project which has only just started half a year ago. Top right, TESAX. 2 years ago we had something else in the same field, DSVGO. We still do that, of course, but now we've added this new one. That's an issue which originated in the automotive sector, and it's all about securing supply chains, just to describe it very simply. That means you have to be able to ensure secure data transmission, not just between the first partner, but also between the third and fourth partner, and also document that. And for that, GlobalX is perfectly suitable, because we have the respective mechanisms to ensure data protection, and also transparency and traceability can be ensured. Now a point which I would like to mention, that has to do with cloud environments. We heard that before, mentioned it already, and that's something we'll have to deal with in the future as well. We are very well equipped for it already, although we have quite a lot to do still. That's about deployment. That means various cloud frameworks have to be supported ideally to be able to deploy and scale. More simply, Docker, Kubernetes or OpenShift infrastructures have to be supported. And in context with that, also the functionalities these cloud provider platforms offer, which has to do with data transport, has to be fully exploited. Peter Falsgraf has already mentioned it. This year we had a very good PSE project, which delivered quite valuable insights that you can achieve very good performance for large data volume. We'll hear more about that later. That's the outlook, and I'd like to hand back to Mrs. Bauer.
Thank you. Now that we've looked into the future, I thought it might be time to look back at what has already been achieved in this field. I'm sure you've heard many things during the PROSTEP Day in 2018 about OpenDXM, but it's now 2 years later, and we have a one-man here who is ideally placed to tell us about it, not just because he's been at the company for 22 years, but also because he's in charge of this area. Welcome, Daniel Wiegand.
Thank you very much, and also welcome from me to this session, OpenDXM GlobalX. What I want to say is what we have been doing since last Tech Day 2018. It was a new web interface at the time. You probably remember we had UID on board at the time. They were here to support us with this new interface. We were just coming up for the release of 9.0. That release has now taken place, and as you can see, we already have 9.1 and 9.2. So in an annual rhythm, we've released new versions. 9.0 with sending and receiving files, small administrative activities, and with 9.1, which was rolled out last November, user web spaces and groups, etc., things like that. And now last week we've released 9.2, and we have a further big step. The administrational functionalities are further provided. Now, as already said, it was rolled out yesterday or last week. I'm sure most of you received an email telling you that it's available. A lot has happened in the background, infrastructure, database support. For many of our customers, that was an important point, that further alternatives had to be offered. We've done that with version 9.0, 9.1. Microsoft SQL Server is supported now with 9.2. We have also got Postgrad. And we've done a few things with things like database export and import, which are much more performant now because of the variety of migration projects, and we want to migrate productive database as efficiently as possible. On the web interface, apart from the redesign, we have a few functional issues as well. I don't want to talk about them in detail, but one point, perhaps generating ad hoc accounts, which you know from Outlook integration, for instance, support that in web client, and you can really give users the rights to install further partners so that the data exchange can be initiated without any great administrative problems. Two further points in processing and integration is CAD processing. We've done quite a lot in order to run the processes, how they can be rolled out in distributed environments, how solutions can be offered, CAD processing, quality control, and things like that. But also, in order to start the processes, with 9.2, we have a CAD client on board, with which very simply CAD processes can be launched. We'll show that later on in the session when we get to a few demos. Then we can look in detail to see what we understand that to be. Then we've got this integration block. It's about GlobalX being integrated with back-end systems. Some of our customers are already familiar with this. We have Richard's integration, the experience integration, Team Center integration. We've extended this portfolio. I have a new interface based on the dashboard technology for plugin SAP ECTR. This link is now possible with GlobalX, and we also have a section processes, PDM import process, which can be linked with that. CAD renaming with very specific rules has now been implemented. These processes are supported. We'll look at that in the live session too, particularly the integration. I'll show you that later on. SAP ECTR is a good point to hand back to Mrs. Bauer, because we're going to see a wonderful presentation from our customers.
Perfect. Thank you. Now you've almost done my job for me. But I just have one thing to add very briefly. I mentioned at the start that you can ask questions. You can ask the experts here on the stage by writing them in the chat on your screen. I will then pass them on to the speakers during the Q&A session. You can also ask questions about the next client presentation. Following this, we will ask the client questions directly. You will now see a pre-recorded presentation but afterwards you can ask your questions directly as a client will be joining us online. So who is this client? He is from HBPO and is responsible for further developing and maintaining the PLM landscape. He communicates with the different technical departments. He has worked for HBPO for the last 4 years and will now tell us how easy data exchange is using the OpenDXM GlobalX SAP ECTR integration. Welcome, Alexander Meyer.
Welcome and good morning from my side. My name is Alexander Meyer. I'm 31 years old and I work for HBPO GmbH. We have fully integrated OpenDXM GlobalX, including SAP ECTR, and I'd like to present that to you in a bit more detail today. I'd like to present the agenda and tell you something about my employer. What is SAP ECTR? Maybe some of you don't know it yet. What does the integration look like and what has it got to offer at the moment? How can I integrate it and how can it be configured? And then there will be a demonstration in the system, what the whole thing looks like, and right at the end we have the conclusion for the integration generally. HBPO, who are we? For 25 years now, we have been offering innovative and high-quality products to the automotive industry. Mainly the Honda module is our specialty. We offer logistics, assembly, but also we create and produce middle consoles, cockpits, active grille shutters, etc. New Porsche Taycan J1, we made the cockpit for that. That was one of our first projects, and it went down very well. We try to produce these products as close as possible to the OEM. That's why we have 31 sites worldwide, and we are a Tier 1 supplier, so we are also often called the OEM's extended workbench. This is something about our history. In the early 90s, the whole thing started with an idea at Hella. First, the Golf project was implemented in a modular way. That went very well, and further projects followed. Then, in the subsequent years, because of this success, the Bear joined. There was cooperation in Hella and the Bear in 1999. There were further sites added in the USA and also in the Asian market. Further companies became aware of us in 2004. Company Plastic Omnium started in HB, so that turned into HBPO as we know it today. And further mergers followed in the Asian market. In the following years, we were able to increase our turnover. In 2017, a turnover of 2 billion was reached, which was a milestone for us. And last year, we were able to get the number of modules we deliver to 6 million. In the meantime, we also have 2,500 employees. So what is SAP ECTR? My first job with HBPO was introduction of ECTR. So accordingly, we were able to replace that, and the requirements was to implement an integrated data exchange tool. So we ended up with GlobalX and PROSTEP AG because that was the only company that were able to offer full integration as SAP ECTR. I'm not quite sure whether there have been new developments since, but in the middle of the year with GlobalX, it was fantastic. And that was also a reason for us to buy GlobalX, and I would like to present what it has to offer. SAP ECTR stands for SAP Engineering Control Center. It was once developed by DSC and then bought by SAP. SAP has continued the development so that further, basically all the following authoring systems can be integrated, not just engineering authoring systems, but also electronic authoring systems. And that means all the divisions in a company can then manage the same data. The interface is clearly updated and can't be compared with SAP at all anymore, really. It is a fully modern and intuitive interface now, which the users like very much as well. Now, integration. Beyond SAP OpenDXM GlobalX, SAP offers the ECTR plugin integration. That's fully integrated. That means we can send data from SAP to GlobalX or GlobalX data to SAP. That's not a problem at all. And also the data that we want to send or want to receive can be passed on from SAP to GlobalX, or the same way we can receive data in GlobalX and pass them on to SAP as far as that is desired. Sending and receiving documents from SAP is very well possible. Data are gathered in collections or containers, and all the processes are fully automated. Only very little manual work is needed, or you only have the few steps which simply have to be done manually. Now the plugin is developed together with DSC Software AG. SAP ECTR 5.1 is used and GlobalX 8.3 or higher. And now the really interesting part, integration and configuration. The add-on itself is provided by DSC in a zip archive, where we have XML to TID files that also reflects the ECTR standard configuration, and there as well XML files made. It's the same in this add-on. We just have to copy it in the ECTR add-on directory, and then the documents can be freely edited and configured according to our desires. Additionally, with the integration of configuration data, we have to have a few bundles in the backend, which is necessary in almost all plugins. In the backend, we have to implement an interface, which is called subconnector, and additionally to the subconnector, which is by the STMS, a data model based on document types, and their types has to be set up. But all of that is perfectly manageable. Now demonstration. SAP ECTR. As you can see, I've already expanded the first few points. These are the so-called smart lists. At HBPO, we have decided to keep 3 lists. First, a list of my processes which are in process, or export collections. I'll just call them processes for now. And then we have a list of processes which are not only being worked on, but have already been exported successfully. And the final list, which we have configured, contains a list of all the processes which have already been sent. But it's important to say, depending on customers' wishes, that can be configured freely and can be implemented very quickly. Once you get by with the ECTR configuration, it's all very simple and intuitive. Let's move on from the smart lists and to the example projects. I've got an example. PROSTEP TECHDAY 2 days ago. I've added 2 documents. I've already exported the package with the context menu, as you can see. With grey, you can't add it anymore either. And the blue file, that's also a symbol to indicate that it's been successfully exported. And test 2, that's not the case yet, it has not been exported. Let's go back. Here are the additional data in the object browser. There are 2 units. The exchange number, status of the program, successful, done today a few minutes ago, and about 5 MB. Now if you can start a new data exchange process, let's go into the project, prep data, got the cooling. That has not been put into this window yet. I'll drag and drop that to the other window, and the other 2 products can be removed. We can see that we've got a slightly more extensive unit group here. I'll just illustrate that in 3D here. You can see this green bar. If I make all of that, I'd like to export that. I've marked it, and it goes straight to the respective product in this window. And again, drag and drop the product or the part can be shifted to my test 2 folder, and you can see the bottom left, it's been successfully copied. You only have to know though that the reference was copied. We've got it here. Cat part, but we don't want a cat part, we also want take part of this part of the cooler with us. So I'm not only going to take the part but also the product. I'm marking both. Drag and drop in the system, and it worked. What is important here, I've got the cat part and the cat product, but for me it's quite sufficient if I have the unit in here. I can take the cat part out, again with the remove button. I know I've got status 50, that allows me to export. Export this to GlobalX. In the first step, that means I'm going to send this data from the GlobalX system to SAP, and as soon as they're ready, the order will be generated. I can see the total overview of the order. At the beginning, I can select who is meant to receive this order. Udo Bornemann, he's my favorite user, and Ralf. I can use a text search, and the respective hits are then illustrated at the bottom. I can also enter a test message and go to the type selection at the bottom. Here now, I've got my package, an exchange package, with 226 number. You can see that in the system later on, and my 2 units, 680 and 1503. Look at the system. There it is again, 503, and about the process, 226 at the end, and I can see that at the top. I can expand on this, and you can see I don't only have the native data, that means the 3D data, but also further documents. What are these documents? At the right, I can see a summary of the elements in this package, the DMX, cat part, cat product, etc. We have set it up in such a way that the main points are pre-selected. These are the native data for us, the 3D data. CAD part, CAD product, or CAD drawing, for instance. Otherwise, it could be PRT, but it could also say on PDT data and PDF data. But now I want to have, of this 1503, I want to have the CAT part, I want to have the VDF. I can select that, and it compresses that. It also goes back to my selection. I would like to send that as well, VDS file. I mark it. Now I'm going back to the left, complete export, and the VDS documents. I can see the tick is missing, but number of files, I've got 1 of 3. That's one element I've just selected. Right, that's how I want to send it on. And that brings me to the end already. We've kept it quite simple. This sending order is quite comprehensive. You can add a few further points, but we now have focused on the simple parts to illustrate the sub ECTR and GlobalX interaction as easily as possible. That means we're at the third step, the end. This is a summary now of what we've done. We can see the receivers we have selected and which documents, number of documents, and which type of documents these are. And should I have forgotten this at the beginning, I can enter a message here. I can enter it or add it. And if I'm happy with everything, then I can complete the order. And the whole thing will be sent to GlobalX. Now I can see Chrome. And for each receiver, we have a sub-export. The data are transferred from the SAP system, GlobalX, and as soon as the data have arrived, we have a separate export order. It always takes a few seconds or a few minutes, because we're not talking about small volume. I'll have a look at SAP, that's a good time to illustrate the information in the SAP system. Go to my test 2 document. Here I can see additional information. I've got 2 units, 226, the number again, status is active. That means it was passed on successfully to GlobalX, and GlobalX processes the data, date and time, and the size. Status is still in editing or in processing. That should change in a moment. Right. That means after the first interaction of WebWizard, after which we passed on the data to GlobalX, we got the first feedback information put into SAP. And without having to look up in GlobalX, we can also see the status of the export order. As an example, the designer wants to send data but wants to continue doing his design work. So he sends the order and continues working in the system, and half an hour later he can look at the order again and can see that it's been sent. As it just happened in the background here now, we've seen the house from active to success. It's changed. That means it's been successfully exported from SAP to GlobalX, and also subsequently successfully sent from GlobalX to the receiver. And in a few seconds the receiver should also have received the data. And if I go back to test 2, here on top of the descriptions I can find a further rider with the recipients of the order. Now additionally, with this information, subsequently I can set up a search in the system and look for precisely these receivers, these recipients. That would be possible as well. So if a few weeks later I want to look for something. I have sent this person. Where have I sent things to person A? And it shows all those packages. And I can find my process quite quickly that way. That brings us to the last point, conclusion. Overall, we want to say that the integration, setting up or integrating it was quite simple. It was a very small effort, really. As a matter of standard, it's recommended to have that done by DSC. We did it ourselves and got the whole thing up and running within a day. So, accordingly, you might as well be brave enough to try it out. It's not black magic. What was very useful in our case was that we had the data sorted by project, and also access rights were filed accordingly. That means the integration. I'll show that to you. For each project, we have a data exchange folder, and only those people who have access to this project can also initiate a data exchange process. So I don't have access to project A, so I can't exchange any data with project A. Integration of add-on of PROSTEPs is very flexible. That was very important for us, that we didn't have to change anything. That was very good. You just have to say that this was, well, you can hardly tell that it's an add-on or a separate tool. When you work with ECTR, you'd imagine it was an integrated part of the solution. And that's very important later on. What we saw in training was that people were really fully familiar with it. The steps, the very few manual steps you had to carry out, and the feedback was entirely positive, and we were highly satisfied. I'd like to thank you very much for your attention at this point, and I will be available for you in the Q&A session together with Mr. Wieland, and I'm sure that a few questions have popped up, and we'll answer them as well as we can. And you can see my contact data here, just in case you're interested. Of course, you'll feel free to get in contact with me so we can talk about these things.
Alexander Meyer, thank you. A wonderful video, and thank you for taking the time to log on today. Welcome.
Good morning, Mrs. Bauer. Good morning, everybody in the studio, and of course, welcome to all the participants.
Yes, good morning. It was a pleasure to watch your presentation, but beyond that, I think it's generated some interest. We've already received some questions on the iPad. Those of you who have questions, please do continue to send them in. I'll see them as they come in. But Mr. Meyer, I suggest I start at the top and work my way through and really bombard you with questions. The first question is, do you use other integration options such as Outlook?
We use the Office integration, Outlook integration, of course, as well, and they're fully integrated, and we're using them with very few problems so far.
So you're not just using it, you're using it successfully. That's good to hear. On to question 2. Are you affected by the discontinuation of SAP PLM? SAP wants to offer Teamcenter in the future.
It's not been totally discontinued. It's going to be continued to be managed and further developed. It's just the collaboration between Siemens and SAP in the Teamcenter has been discontinued. I don't believe that is a real discontinuation.
That's also good to hear. So another question, how much training was required?
As it was a totally new development, GlobalX was introduced together with the SAP ECTR interface. We had 30-minute sessions, and I must say it was really very, very easy and dealt with very, very quickly. I do have to say of these 30 minutes, of course, mainly we focused on GlobalX, and the short part was about integration, and that was perfectly sufficient.
That's a good example, thank you. The next question is, Did you need to make any adjustments to ECTR itself, or was the plugin just imported?
The plugin was played on, and the adaptation that we wanted as HBPO was configured accordingly. But you can, just looking at the standard, the way add-on is delivered, you can use SAP as well.
Thank you. My last question for you is, you mentioned that the installation was very simple. How much time did you have to invest in installations during the project?
If we're just purely looking at the SAP integration, then it was 1 day.
That was short and sweet. Thank you for your informative and insightful remarks. Thank you for coming. We wish you every success in the future. Now we will continue here in the studio. Our next speaker is Daniel Wiegand once again. This time he will touch on the highlights from the PROSTEP lab. That means the main focus will be processes, but also integration possibilities that the OpenDXM GlobalX and the relevant connections offer. Have fun.
After the review, I'll take over the outlook. What do we want to do with OpenX in future? What have we actually accomplished? Things that we could show you live. I put a few things together. Now my pointer is not working. Let's use this one, okay? CAD. I showed you this before. CAD processes is a very important issue. We've invested quite a lot in processing, quality control, so you can carry out these processes fully integrated in GlobalX. But what CAD processes require is that you have complete valid assemblies in these processes so that conversion can be carried out accordingly. And for using it, that's always a challenge. How can these assemblies be put together? In PDM integration, that works very simply. PDM delivers these assemblies, can break down the structures so that we can start these processes. What we've done newly now is that based on the application that we have in there for a while already, we built a CAD client, which I would like to show you how the whole thing works. So we're going to start with data, which we have locally on our disk. Assembly unit CAD data are available. Now let's start by opening a folder with the complete assembly. I know what my group element of assembly is. I can select that with the right mouse button, and now again I can start CAD export with GlobalX. When I do that, the application starts. In the background it carries out analysis of this root element. The structure has been broken down, all the dependent parts have been detected, and it's been put together in one dataset. That's not the only thing we can do. What we can also do is to offer the supplier that he can visualize what he wants to export accordingly. So what we have is a CAD preview which is rendered on the fly, and we have a simplified CAD illustration of the geometry so we can have a look and see what's in my group, in my assembly, what do I want to export. If I have more than one assembly that I want to send out, then here I have the possibility to add further with drag and drop options. Now I'll take a root element, which just drag over the drag and drop. A second set of data is added with the second structure, so the whole thing is added, supplemented accordingly. But that does not only work with root elements. I can also select directories. I can select directory without knowing the root file. This directory is drawn over to the dataset, and it can carry out this file detection on its own. That's the first file in the dataset, so various assemblies can be sent off this way. And what is also highly interesting is that I can even take directories. I've prepared one here in which you have various assemblies. Very often we don't even know, if we have several files in one assembly, we don't even know how they belong together. So the analysis takes care of that for us. I'll just drag it over to the directory, and accordingly it's broken down various data sets, so the analysis has determined what these objects are and puts together data sets with the dependent components. I can send that off, export it accordingly. I have to select one or several recipients, which I can select, and then I send it off. That means I've initiated GlobalX export and can send the data to my partners that way, or several partners. That's the CAD client available in 9.2. You can use that within the CAD extensions. The next thing, OpenDXM Broker, a further software component within the OpenDXM product suite. The processes which have been defined, conversion, quality, but also transfer, FTP servers, that doesn't necessarily have to be generated on the GlobalX interface. I can use this broker so that processes can be sent off time control. So if the process I've converted, conversions, checks, file transfers, I can really automate that, and that makes sense if I have regular intervals, short intervals at which I have to send out large volumes of data. I can use various channels. I don't have to use the channel with GlobalX. I can dock it onto GlobalX, but this way I can also initiate time control transfers. A third point, which I would like to present, what we have done. This should also give you an outlook to what we will do. Security is one of the key issues for OpenDXM GlobalX. We want to offer the best possible security in data exchange. Last time we already introduced HBPO. We've done quite a lot. We wanted to be in line with the data protection rules. There's a double opt-in method, which is basically mandatory. That means a user has to explicitly confirm setup of his account so that storage of his personal data is agreed with. That's possible with 9.2 now. And the next thing, Urhearing, TSAC, is something everybody's talking about at the moment. The situation at the moment is that authentication methods play a role. Above all, more-factor authentication plays a role. We have solutions in it today already. They've been in GlobalX for quite some time already. The SSO modules or upstream portals or connection of OpenID, for instance, as a provider for login methods. But we're going to extend that with the next version, 9.3. Probably we're going to provide that earlier on even because it's a very important issue. So we're going to have a fully integrated two-factor authentication. And it's important for us to stress that we have penetration tests which we take very seriously in line to safeguard security, done by an external company, experts who do this every day of the week. Before 9.2 rolled out, which happened last week actually, the software was tested. We had unrestricted release for GlobalX use in productive environments now. You've probably been following this, I'm sure. We didn't have got your post telling you that we are going to be available to supply 9.2, but we also have safety security patches for 9.1 and 9.0 because a few weaknesses were detected. We've fixed that right away, of course. That means we will continue these tests with each major version. We will continue these penetration tests. And that takes us to the last block, which I would like to have in this lab session. That's integration. We've just seen this film from Alexander Meyer, SAP ECTR. Now, integration in field experience. Quite a lot has happened on the interface as dashboard technology. And for that, we've developed an entirely new plugin so that we can integrate on the interface. And the principle is very similar to what we have in SAP ECTR. In field experience, we want to put together the order, and then together with the DXM GlobalX technology, we'd like to send it off. I'd like to show you that as well. pre-configured my data exchange on this dashboard. It'll take a while for it to set up, but we can recognize a few known elements of the experience. The structural editor is not ours, but it's definitely in it, but it's one of the points at which the users, well, normally work with it. I can open an assembly accordingly, and you can see with the standard options and the 3D preview, it still takes a while for it to set up. Can have a look at this. And the idea is that with this data exchange solution, the plug-in, so what you can see on the left-hand side, in the widget technology, data exchange can be kept as simply as possible. We've seen that with Mr. Meyer already. We're working with these collection objects as well. We have a persistent position of processes, data exchange processes. I can set that up by, for instance, simply taking the head element of it, and by drag and drop, I can drop it in this target. And here I am able, well, if I am able to do it, to enter a little memo. I've got my collection object, that's new, status is created, so it's just been generated, no information, no data, no recipients. That'll take a while for the structure to be broken down, but it should do that right away. Oh, I've got to select it first. Okay, then it'll show it. Now you can see the data sets on the right, which have already been added here. As we've seen that in SAP ECTR, you can certainly add further assemblies. I can just use this search function, experience, search for further elements or structures I want to send out with it, and I've found a hit. I'll just take that with the drag and drop option and add it as a further data set to this process. That means that here again, several data sets can be sent to my partner. If I believe that I've selected all the data I want to send out, then here again I have the possibility send to GlobalX. I can send it, pass it on to export, and what happens in the background, you can recognize what Mr. Meyer has just shown you. GlobalX data transfer wizard for PDM data exchange processes. It's used in all of our integrations. I have the possibility to select one or several recipients. I'm just going to choose one. You've just seen in Mr. Meyer's film. That way you can also select several recipients for one process. Here, the information could be sent with the recipient by typing it. This wizard is based on various wizard pages which can be combined at will. HBPO, you can see different wizard pages in use as what I'm using for the live demo. You can see the documents we've just selected, and accordingly I can have that shown, but also have the possibility to add further files not managed by Field Experience. The Creo part, for instance, can be added. The data assembly I put together on the wizard page. Then here, an example. Let's not use an HBPO because there the test took place much earlier on the plugin, but what we can check here is we know where the data are going to, we know which data are being released, are they allowed to be sent at all, so accordingly I can have this integrated as a further check. I get a summary and I'll just send off the data at this point. Here now in the background the structural information is generated, that is going to be sent to the OpenDXM GlobalX. Report of success. The order has been generated. That means OpenDXM GlobalX will take over processing this step. That's running in the background. The user is not burdened by conversion and all these checkout things. He can continue working and he gets the feedback. Status is not determined yet. Just refresh it and you can see that the status is active now. So at the moment it's still running in the background. That'll take a while for the data to be checked out and prepared accordingly. But what it has done at this point already is that I can see feedback. Who has this transfer been started to? That's constantly saved in this collections, in the sending collections. So that with these field experience means data can be accessed, information you can follow accordingly, who carried out which transfer. That's very important information, that this can actually be traced. We'll hear more about that in a moment. That's very important to our customers. And refresh. Let's see what's happening. It's still exporting, but I can use this opportunity to simulate the other side. We've just sent a transfer to Mrs. Wong. I'm just going to sign in and have a look at GlobalX. What's set up here now is that new users' terms of use terms of use has to be accepted. We'll do that at this point. And data right at the beginning. Here we can see new data package has been sent. Mr. Schmidt is sending me a new process. I'm just going to click on the file. The download process starts and opens the file in the browser. All the parts which I selected in the collection have been sent to my partner, and he can continue working with them and could also use the same portal to send the files back. So that was a brief view of field experience integration and plugin for the dashboard technology. That was to give you an overview of what we can offer with the new 9.2 new version. Thank you very much, Ms. Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Wiegand. That looked very interesting. And finally, we've reached that point in the agenda that I'm sure you were all waiting for. I mentioned it in my introduction. We are presenting an exclusive new product. We've just heard that the issue here is traceability, particularly concerning complex development projects. And this will now be possible with OpenCLM. It's a completely new product, so it's worth introducing a completely new member of the PROSTEP team as well. He came from the beautiful Franconia from the car manufacturer Schaeffler to Darmstadt. He is now responsible for OpenCLM as product manager. Please give him a warm welcome. Feel free to applaud in front of your screens at home. Fabrice Mogul-Nem.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be able to introduce our new OpenCLM solution. As you will find out, OpenCLM is a solution which can take care of a lot of problems for us. It's a new milestone in our digitalization strategy. What it's about, you will hear that right after a brief introduction. By way of introduction, I'd like to analyze the field we're working in as a company today. It's nothing new about to say that this environment is in constant change. What's new is the speed and the unforeseeability with which these changes take place. The corona epidemic, as an example, is one example which shows that one singular event can wreak havoc with all our planning, all our solutions. That means as companies in future we have to try to become more flexible. But what's also very important is that all our potential for innovation, but also cost reduction and risk reduction, these potentials should not be left barren. We have to follow up on them and stick on it. As a company, PROSTEP, we see plenty of potential, particularly in overcoming shortcomings in processes and also in IT landscapes. We're dealing with a significant growth in IT systems, and they should all be integrated. There are numbers to confirm that we have plenty of potential which can still be exploited. As you can see in the left-hand column, because of our problems, processes which are not ductile, we use lots of money, 61% for instance, of knowledge workers' time dedicated to shadow work. That means this is work that you cannot necessarily bill to your customers. If you analyze this further, 22% of this waste is because people are searching for documents and information. This phenomenon is certainly not new to you. In many companies, a new job has been created. Document chasing is certainly, document hunting is certainly not a new term in your business. Document hunters can make a career out of it. So we'll have to do something in future about this. And the second column is expressed in US dollars. You can see how many dollars are spent in America on guarantee claims. 25 billion. Then if you reduce that to the automotive industry, 9 billion a year spent on warranty claims. And a huge share of that is due to lack of support or implementation of compliance requirements, like traceability. And that is also given rise because of lack of transparency within processes. We at PROSTEP have thought this further down the line, and what we imagine is a world in which you, as a manager of products or projects, no longer need dozens of discussions to hunt documents or get a status on the development process or product maturity. You'd get that automatically. For traceability, beyond domains or tool limits, you don't need to make use of any kludge solutions. And just imagine how secure you'd feel coming up to an audit if you had the possibility to get all the reports at the press of a button, just to express release with a good feeling. Specifically for an auditing, you'd be excellently prepared. These challenges will be coming up in the future, and we at PROSTEP are going to face them, because after 25 years we have expertise in the PLM industry. We have the expertise to be able to provide exactly this kind of solution. We're going to bundle all our competencies, starting with consulting, strategic consulting competencies. Participate, it's very important that we can offer a tailor-made use case for your needs, that we offer the right benefits for OpenCLM introduction. And based on that, we'll be able to draft a specification configuration for OpenCLM. There are further elements which we would like to use, orchestrate for OpenCLM. Our OpenPLM solution will allow us to build a bridge in heterogeneous processes or IT worlds, and as you've heard from our colleagues of our GlobalX integration, you're interacting with our products in your working environments. That means you don't need to leave your familiar working environment in order to be able to exchange data with your partners. With OpenCLM, that will be possible in the future. We're offering GlobalX at this point as well. OpenCLM at this point will allow you to gather these data beyond tools and transfer them securely to your partners. With the document solution, PDF Generator 3D, we have the possibility to convert the documents, standards, and export them that way. That way, we're working together with several boards, groups analysis, the PROSTEP IVIP Association, and VDA. So there are various work groups we're active in today. Precisely for this standardization, we need network data, the networked working, and solutions like DDP, Digital Data Package, will of course be used in OpenCLM, so that such data exchange scenarios can not only be restricted to CAD data, but also connected data as you need them in future with traceability. From our point of view, that is precisely the elements that you need so that in future you will be positioned even better. Some of you will probably be wondering, is PROSTEP offering a PDM system? No, there are plenty of PDM systems on the market already. They also have their justifications. What we see is that many customers are more and more, due to complexity in product development, forced to follow several vendors instead of a one-vendor strategy. And we feel very much at home in such integration scenarios. That's why with this solution, our scenario top right, that's the best starting point for OpenCLM. With our integration abilities, we want to log on to all these different systems and offer you added value by offering an interface for all. There are further imaginable scenarios. If you approach this integration as a first step, as some customers do, PPOC, so that this integration of tools can be tested for MBSC. With NASA, currently a customer, which I may mention at this point, with OpenPDM and our OSLC, we're integrating doors with Magic Door and Windchill so that this tracing between these systems can be reflected. With OpenCLM, you have the possibility so that a very thin layer can be put over these systems to achieve traceability and generate reports, etc. These are possibilities we have in the architecture which we can support. And that is basically the essence of OpenCLM, not a PDM system, but based on our competence in integration and processes, we can use the data and generate extra value. I'm sure you're very excited to hear when you're going to start getting OpenCLM. Now, we're basing this on many modules which already exist today. So the first POC, we have the possibility to substantiate these application scenarios, as some of you can already do it today. So in January 21, we will have a first demo for OpenCLM. With this demo, you will certainly have a few use cases, but the first version of this OpenCLM will only be available in July 21. And up until then, there will be plenty of time to get in contact with you and talk about the different use cases and analyze them in detail, so that from July, we can become active with OpenCLM in your company. Those were essentially the points I've prepared for today. I'm also very happy that I will have the possibility to promote such a solution with PROSTEP. That means with colleagues who are very committed to this, and we are willing to face this challenge in future for you to make you more flexible and more successful. Back to Mrs. Bauer.
Mr. Nem, thank you. This is a true innovation. I think we're all wondering what else can possibly come, what kind of integration options, new functions. In other words, what is the roadmap? This is the first question. Mr. Wiegand, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, this is what the next version or the next versions is intended to put on the market. A brief overview, which versions will follow. We've got three colors. GlobalX, as planned, 9.2, been put on the market. This annual rhythm has now established itself. That means 9.3 will be available in November 2021. Then we've got the patch versions, which we're focusing on 9.2 patch versions. In the back of our minds, we're also thinking of 9.1 as the patch version, but the situation has changed so much of our customers now are following the updates much closer. We've done quite a lot. The updates are quite a lot simpler now, so that the need for all the patch versions is no longer there, really. 9.2 is definitely our focus. The green ones, those are the PDM integrations, which have their own versions. That's because we follow the OpenPDM technology. Theis will certainly have something to say about that later on. And this year we will promote the switch to 8.7, and next year then the switch to 9.0, OpenPDM 9.0. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment as well. And then we have the versions which will follow in the same quarter, but are very much project driven, so the release dates are a bit less stringent here. It's possible that will be a preliminary version depending on what kind of need there is in the different projects. Now the orange color, that's a classic OpenDXM, currently available on the market of its version 6.6, and 6.7 will be delivered with a new release in the second quarter. That's how we're going to deal with our releases next year. And now GlobalX, a few buzzwords. What are the main topics we're going to be focusing on? The biggest one, of course, cloud. We already heard about cloud infrastructure before. We've already carried out the first preliminary steps. POCs have been carried out so that the strong gains in performance by cloud infrastructure can be exploited in our case too. Got so-called alternative firewalls where you can really have a regional distribution because data volume is growing and growing. And we want to support that by increased cloud infrastructure. The next main topic is that the entire administration is to be integrated. The old web GUI, which is technologically speaking quite old already, should no longer be delivered anymore. That's the objective in 9.3, so that we have taken this step. There are a few functionalities, task overviews to be improved, reports, serial reports are to be reflected better in the new interface as we've done so far. Things like self-service, that's a topic which pops up again and again, so you can really register yourself. Again, administrational work can be saved on here. You can give users the opportunity to register themselves in these applications. Then response to export processes. At the moment in GlobalX, they're totally deconnected. But for PLM scenarios, that's very important so that we know when files come back, which process do they actually belong to. We're thinking about extending that. Authentication, two-factor authentication, I mentioned that already, based on the TOTP algorithm. So there are a whole lot of handy tokens for that. With quite a limited effort, you can carry out two-factor authentication with a mobile token. That's what we definitely want to do in GlobalX. And then at top right, we have the two green topics, direct integration, PDM integration, switching to architecture OpenPDM 9. Next, in Nico Theis's session, we'll hear quite a lot about PDM 9 with a different architecture, which is much closer to the connectors. We're much more able to distribute things better. And again, we're going to be talking about being much more efficient in transferring large data volumes in distributed environments. And with Teams, Active Workspace, etc., want to extend the clients. Siemens is going to make something available as well. So we want to generate a PDM so we can extend our world of application here as well. So that was the brief overview about the subject and topics we have to talk about. If you have any further questions, I would like to refer you to the live chats, but I'm sure Mrs. Bauer will have something to say about them as well.
Exactly, Mr. Wiegand. Thank you. However, I think we should start by gathering the questions that you have already sent me to my iPad. If you have any further questions or think of anything during the discussion, please don't hesitate to ask. We will see them and ask the speakers. So let's get started with the Q&A. The first question is for you, Mr. Wiegand. Is it possible to control the classic OpenDXM using the dashboard?
Yes, that works. We do have this technology, the wizard technology, and that decides whether it's a DXM order or a GlobalX order. So the point is not the plugin, but later downstream at our side.
Yes, thank you. The second question was addressed to Mr. Meyer, but I think you might be able to answer it as well, Mr. Wiegand. It is linked to HBPO. Which components ensure that the dispatch data has a sufficient maturity level, for example, release status?
We do have rights, tests, checks in the system that's been shown. That happens on the plugin side. The status is actually checked. How that's implemented technically, perhaps we can talk about that in the chat round.
So this will be clarified soon. Keep watching. I will tell you then how to access the chat session. But we'll continue with the questions first. Another one for you, you're in high demand. What is the status of a Team Center integration?
The status of a Team Center integration. Well, Team Center Active Workspace, that's something we have to deal with right away. Integration of Active Workplace can be addressed here. For classic Team Center, client-rich client, it's already possible today. We have Team Center's 11, 12 releases. We have the respective plugins available so that from there OpenDXM GlobalX and OpenDXM Classic drops can be generated. So both ways, exporting and importing, we have a finished solution, also based on Wizard technology, which is quite similar to what we've seen in the context of SAP and Experience. And also plenty of customers have it in use already. Yes, exactly. Many customers have it in use already.
You have good answers. I'll stick with you. Is it possible to look up the exact security breach, 9.0, 9.1 breach?
We're not going to disclose it. We're not going to do that because you need a certain degree of know-how in order to exploit this gap. So we want to keep it shielded. It's a gap in our firewall. Well, which was in our firewall. Very important. Yes, it was there. Now, you do need an active session. That's all I can say for now. You have to have had and log into the session, and you have to know the weakness, and then you could carry out malware in this firewall, but we can't issue any details at this point.
Yes, too much of a good thing. I have another question about HBPO, but I've been told that you can maybe answer this. I'm sure you'll be fairly tired afterwards. When HBPO implements GlobalX, is anything converted into formats that are not available in SAP?
As far as I know, not, or not yet. Perhaps we could convince Mr. Meyer. He might have seen the presentation as well, and how much we can do in this field. What he does is, if transfers are still carried out, GlobalX from SAP ECTR, he does not only serve the web portal, but also in the background, OTB transfers are carried out to the partners. But in theory, that's possible, yes.
Great. Okay, then we'll move on to Linux. Is there a Linux integration of GlobalX so that the data received can be continuously processed automatically?
Well, thank you very much for the wishes. Linux. We support Windows and Linux systems. There's no debate there. For the further processing of the data, it depends on what the system which is meant to be used supports. All our post-processing process is done in Python. That means we're independent of platforms as well, and then it depends what the system vendors have on offer, whether we can carry it out or not. But basically, our components have Linux capability.
That sounds good. I have one last question for you again. It starts with, hello everyone, but I think it's meant for you. It continues, does that mean that the GlobalX Docker container will also be available in the future and can be installed on premise?
Well, that's for him.
I see the question is being passed on.
That's definitely the plan. We're tentatively moving in that direction to see what we can provide in future. It's a bit early days to talk about that. That's certainly going to be an issue next year, and no later than 2 years from now, we're going to have another Tech Day. But that's the direction we're going to be heading in.
That's a great answer to bring all of this to a close by looking into the future. Thank you to our speakers, but also to our listeners for being here and asking questions. What's next? I've already said that the live sessions are starting. You can click on a link on your screens now to be transferred to the next team meeting. Then you can ask Mr. Meyer questions, for example, to tie up any loose ends. So it's possible to network and exchange ideas. Then we'll continue here with 2 exciting sessions. The next one will start in about half an hour at 11 AM and continue until 12:30. The subject of this session will be PDF Generator 3D. There'll be a client presentation again and a Q&A session. The third session from 2 to 3:30 PM will be about all there is to know about Product Suite OpenPDM. As already mentioned, you can watch this session again as it has been recorded and it will have English subtitles. It will be available online. You can share it or watch it again. All the best. Thank you for logging on. See you soon.